Today on Rambling About Cars, the new Nissan Z is here, and it's coming for Supra. The new NSX Type S is here, and it got overshadowed again. And there's an updated Lincoln Navigator because we have to have our big luxury SUVs in the world. So zippy Z-ears, it's podcast time. I'm Christopher Smith. Mr. Chris Bruce across the way.
What did you just say? Zippy Z-ears?
Zippy Z-ears. Zippy Z, Zip,
okay.
Z, you know, Nissan Z, Zippy Z-ears. It flows off the tongue. It could be a thing.
I don't know if it flows off the tongue, but okay. Yeah, let's get this show started.
Well, just go with me here a little bit. It's been a long week and a half. Zippy Z-ears. I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, so speaking of which, let's start with the new Z because it's finally here. Question mark. I only say that because the 350Z and the 370Z have been around for ages. You know, obviously the 370Z took over for the 350. It's just the fact that Nissan just refused to update it, do anything with it. They just left it to wither on the vine. And I think when it debuted, it was fine. It was certainly fine. Yeah. It was okay. Cool. It was competitive even. But they just refused to do anything with it. And
well, I mean, aside from some graphics and some special editions with some more
you
graphics.
And I both know that doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count. And yeah, for the record, I love the 370Z. I like it better than the 350Z. But when you let it go for a decade, yeah. So, but new Z is here.
Yep. And
I mean, the bones are kind of still the same underneath, but I don't care. Honestly, Bruce, I love it. I don't love it as much as I wanted to love it. I still find the square front a little awkward in appearance. I wish they'd rounded that a little bit more, maybe shrunk it down. I know they were trying to go for the original 240 look, but that front grille on the new Z, it's a little too rectangular. It's just a little too sharp. I think it needs to be a little bit smaller, but in my mind, it's a minor gripe. I think this thing looks great, and I can't wait to drive it.
Maybe I'm just in a bad mood today. I don't know, man. But like, it just looks like a 370Z with a nose job to me. Like, I want to like it. I want to like pat Nissan on the back for this. Like, good job. You finally brought out a new one. And I don't know.
It's the bones are the same. We know that. We know that the bones are the same.
Yeah.
Nissan, they're not in a position to really engineer a completely new car from the ground up.
They are not.
And really, I mean, I don't think the bones of the 370Z were bad. Despite their age, I think it's still a fun to drive sports car. It just needed a major update on the outside. It needed a significant update for the interior, and I mean, and that's what we have here, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, when you look at the interior, it's got, I mean, it has the full digital instrument cluster now, and it has I have to look at my notes for this because this is still coming in kind of new for us. The center touch screen standard is 8 inches, I believe.
Well, here, tell you what,
you get a 9-inch optional touch screen.
If you would be so kind to pull up some photos for me, and I will read our listeners some specs just to kind of give them an idea of what's happening here.
Very good. Very good.
But I can't quite do both at once. So yeah, no, I don't have enough hands. So it is arriving in 2 trim levels. We're going to get sport and performance. In addition to that, the performance is going to be available in the Z Proto spec. They are only going to make 240 of those. You're clever, Nissan. Good job. And for anyone who doesn't realize, Nissan,
we see what you're doing there.
Yeah, we gotcha. Regardless of which one you get, twin turbocharged 3-liter V6 that's making 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. That's an engine that more or less exists already in the Nissan stable. In the Infinity models, you can get that in their red, I forget. It's either Redline or Red models. But that's an engine that exists. But, you know, now you're getting it into a smaller, sportier car. So that's not, you know, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's not, they didn't engineer a brand new engine for this vehicle.
Which, honestly, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I'm really fine with that. again, we're talking about a company that has some limited
shape.
They have some limited resources here. So the fact that they even have anything at all, I think, bravo to them. And I know listeners know I'm not particularly fond of Supra, the A80 or the new one, which is really just a coach-built BMW. Nissan did this on their own. They didn't go pull a car from somebody else. They pulled their own car. And
yeah, they took the 370Z they had and they made it as nice as they possibly could.
Which I'm fine with that. And we don't know specific pricing on this vehicle yet, right?
So but a lot of numbers have been thrown around that it's going to start at around 40 grand.
And that's going to start around 40 grand at 400 horsepower. There's no 4-cylinder model here. No, so when I said in the beginning the new Z is here and it's coming for Supra, I mean you're getting the 6-cylinder Supra starting what, around 50? Isn't it north of 50?
I think it's right at 50.
Right around 50. So you can have your 2-door, 2-seat Japanese sports car for 50 grand with a little less horsepower, or 40 grand with a little bit more horsepower. And when you get in the Nissan Z, it's a Nissan. You get in the Toyota Supra, it has Toyota branding and it's a good car, but I mean, it's not Toyota. I think Nissan is in a good position to really grab some of the market with the Z. I mean, we know it's never going to be a huge volume seller, right?
Right.
It's a niche sports car. Let's take a look here at the interior.
So just super quick, just the 6-cylinder Supra starts at $49,990.
Okay.
So 10 grand more.
Okay. I mean that's a big difference, man.
Yeah.
For Nissan to come in with their own vehicle, with their own parts, I don't care that it's the 370 underneath. I really don't care. I think they've done a really good job on the interior. We're looking at it now with a digital instrument cluster.
I think the interior is a strong point.
And they still incorporate the 3 little dials right on top of the dash. Mm-hmm. That's a neat touch. And also, it's something you can't get with a Supra, 6-speed manual transmission. We know that the automatics, modern automatics, the dual clutch automatics, they can shift far, far quicker than a human ever could. From a sheer standpoint of performance, you can't beat that. But
and you will be able to get an optional 9-speed automatic with this.
Yes,
so,
yes, you'll be able to choose.
Is not the only option. You can,
with 400 horsepower, I would happily take the 6-speed because I'm not looking to nab an extra 0.2 of a second off of a lap time in this car. Mm-hmm. Well, I would, but I wouldn't be doing it to try to win a race. I would just be doing it to try to feel good about myself. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we could be looking at like the last, and maybe I'm getting a little melodramatic here. We could be looking at the last proper 2-seat internal combustion driver's car here, maybe with the Z. I mean, is anybody else going to come out with a new one?
That's overly dramatic necessarily, especially in this price point. Like you're going to have your supercars that do it, certainly. But we've been hearing that next gen Mustang might go all-wheel drive. We've definitely been hearing this next gen Mustang is going to go hybrid. Camaro's dead.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't heard hide or hair of a new Miata, so who knows what's going on there. It maybe is a strong maybe is what I would say to your statement.
I mean, unless Honda was listening to our program, what was it, last week or a couple weeks ago?
Well, we'll get to a thing later. I don't think they were.
where we said, you know what, if you want to bring back the S2000, you need to do it now before it goes electric. That could be a thing that would make me very happy. But the new Z here, this makes me happy. And yeah, I mean, it's got the twin turbo V6, taken from Infinity. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with 400 horsepower. 400 horsepower.
That's a good number.
In this car, I know there will be people that are like, oh, it doesn't have 600 horsepower and it doesn't get to 60 in under 3 seconds. I don't care. 4 seconds to 60 is fast. 6 seconds to 60 is fast.
Yeah, to be clear, so what Nissan said is that it would be 15% quicker than the 370Z to 60. We did the math. That suggests high 4-second figures.
Yeah, and I don't really know why Nissan is being cagey on that figure, to be honest.
I don't know why they're being cagey about price. Just come out and say it. But yeah.
Well, I mean, when is this car coming out? I mean, we still have a little ways to go before we can buy it. It's not like it's coming out next week.
Right. They're saying early 2022. So to me, that means first half of 2022 in automaker speak. So, I
mean, there's still a lot of time for them to tweak some things, maybe find some ways to cut cost here and there. I mean, it's not uncommon for automakers to not really step full on into every single spec unless they're going to put the thing on sale next week.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're talking around 40 grand for a car that's 0 to 60 in a 4-second range, it should be just outstanding as far as handling. I mean, aside from that nose, there's really nothing I don't like. We're looking at the taillights now. If you're not following us on YouTube, Motor One Podcast on YouTube, you can see what we're talking about here. I love the 300ZX themed taillights here.
I agree.
I love that they put so many just, little touches on the exterior of the car. But when we get back to that nose, it's just too rectangular. It should have been a little bit narrower, and I'll probably harp on that for a little while.
I agree. I can't fight you there. I think it looks fine. I think the similarities to the 370Z are what hurt me the most. I just feel like, make it look slightly different. It looks like a 370Z with a nose job to me. But I agree with you that the interior updates are fantastic because the 370Z is so old. It has been needing those updates, and it goes back to that letting it wither on the vine thing. That it's been bad.
It very much looked its age, and I do hear what you're saying about the 370Z bones. It reminds me of all of the hate that the Mustang got after the Fox body. Because you had the Fox body that started in 79, and then Ford was going to just get rid of the rear-wheel drive platform altogether. And of course, we know the Probe was supposed to be the next Mustang.
Yep.
We know that didn't happen, so Ford needed to change course. So that Fox body platform was modified for the 94 Mustang for the SN95. And then that Fox platform was still around for the new Edge. They went all the way through 2004. And I remember hearing the gripes all the time about, I can't believe this car is terrible. The platform is old. I mean, it got modified over the time. I will concede that the new Edge Mustangs, the 99 to 04s, the ergonomics on those things are just completely weird. And I'm pretty forgiving on that sort of thing. But they're very weird. So I hear what you're saying about the 370Z bones. But, I mean, I think those bones were pretty good to start with. I think they had a good foundation, and I can't wait to drive this thing.
Totally.
This is one of the more exciting debuts that I've been waiting for. I kind of wish Nissan would have made it a little bit different from their prototype, from the Z Proto, because
I'm fine with that.
It's pretty much the Z Proto. I think they changed
better though in a way. Okay. Let's look at Subaru, what they do. They make a concept that looks drop dead sexy. You look at it and you say, make that. And then they come out with something that looks completely different. And you're like, why didn't you make it look like the concept? I prefer the opposite. Show me a concept. Show me something that looks close. And then, massage it to be roadworthy and give it to me. That's just me. It's totally an opinion.
Yeah. I guess it depends on the car itself. And maybe I'm saying that this time around because when the Z Proto came out, I was like, okay, that's a concept. There are lots of things I like about it. There are a few things I don't. Hopefully they'll fix the things that I don't like. And they didn't change anything, namely that front that still looks kind of buggy. I am told by quite a few people that have seen it in person that it does look better in person. So I will reserve further judgment on that until I get a chance to see it in person. And yes, I will see it in person. I'm excited about that one.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing it too.
How about the Acura NSX, because that's the new Type S debuted.
Yep.
I mean the Nissan just debuted here
2 days
just
ago?
yesterday.
Oh,
well,
yesterday.
A few days ago,
whatever.
A few days ago, as you're listening to the podcast, it debuted on Tuesday, August 17th. So that's going to be a few days after this podcast comes out. But Acura NSX Type S was a few days before that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about that right now. Bruce, you wrote this up. I can pull up some photos if you want to talk about this for our listeners.
I could do this one off the dome, more or less.
You want to go for it?
Yeah. So we talked about this with Clint because we knew it was coming. Obviously, we knew this was a thing that was going to happen. We just didn't really know that much about it. And for anyone watching on YouTube, you'll see kind of the hero shot of it here.
And I think it looks great, by the way.
It looks fantastic.
Some people don't like the new nose, the updated nose they gave it, and I don't.
Those people are dumb.
Thank you. We agree.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, it's a little too edgy.
I think it looks fantastic.
I would prefer a little more symmetry with some of those angles, but it's a minor gripe. Yeah, I think it looks very mean. I think it looks very aggressive. I think it's a fitting way to send the NSX into the sunset.
So this is a 1 year only model. They're going to make 350 of them. 300 of those are going to be for the United States, which kind of suggests to me that maybe the new NSX never kind of got traction outside of the US, or maybe it's because it's built here. I don't know. But it's interesting to me that the vast majority are going to be for the United States rather than outside of the United States. The big kind of the headline feature is that it does have a power upgrade. It's going to be making 600 horsepower, 492 pound-feet of torque. That's up over 573 horsepower and 476 pound-feet for the standard. Also, you're going to be able to get an optional lightweight package that's going to reduce weight by just about 58 pounds, which it's not a lot, but it's you on a diet after 8 months. It's something. It's not nothing. And that is going to add what? So the standard version is going to be $169,000 or $169,500. And with the lightweight package, $182,500. So
I mean, it's a supercar price, that's for sure.
It totally is. It totally is. But again, there's only 300 of them going to be made for the United States. Mm-hmm. So if you want one, that's what you got to pay. And I think they're going to sell all 300. I can't imagine that someone, there are going to be people out there that are going to balk at that price.
With Type S, I think there'll be 300 people that have deep pockets, that are absolutely enthusiasts for Honda and Acura, mm-hmm. that'll pick up this car. Talking about sales, and maybe it didn't do as well outside the United States. I don't have the sales stats right in front of me. I know it. It was never going to be a huge selling car. But I guess I asked the question: if you have $160,000 to $180,000 to spend on just a fun car, is the NSX on your list? And I'm not sure that it's on my list. And I think that's rather telling. I mean, if I have that kind of money to spend, I'm instantly thinking about Porsche, or I'm instantly thinking about one of the big AMG Mercs or something. That's still going to be out of the range of like a lot of the new Ferraris, Lamborghini. You're not going to touch any of that. You will get some used though, and maybe instead of a brand new supercar, you go for something used. I don't know. It's an interesting question that I think could be part of the reason why maybe the NSX just wasn't as big as Acura wanted it to.
So we're looking at this picture now on the YouTube video, which is the new NSX Type S posed in front of the original. I don't think it's a Type S. It's an original NSX. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, if you had $180,000 to spend, are you like me and you just buy the original? Because I think if I had that money just sitting in my pocket, like I got that money to spend, which I don't, but if I did, I think I'm just going to buy an original, and it's going to be from what I've seen, super nice examples, 100, 120. If you get a steal of a deal, maybe 80 grand. I think I'm going to do that. Where are you at?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
The original NSX, I mean, it was cool. It never really got me super excited like it did some people.
Okay.
I mean, if I have that money, like I said, I'm probably looking to Porsche first and foremost. I mean, that's
911 turbo money, and a decently optioned 911 turbo. Yeah, and I mean, the new 911s are so amazing on all levels. Yeah.
So I feel terrible for Acura. And I kind of touched on this in my intro when I said they got overshadowed again, because I find it extraordinarily ironic. When the second generation NSX came out, those of you listening, you might remember, debuted at the Detroit Auto Show at the same time as the Ford GT. Now, the world knew that the new NSX was coming. The Ford GT was kind of a surprise. And when that debuted, it was like everybody and their brother forgot about the new NSX. And it was tragic because it's such a great car. But I mean, what are you going to do? Here's a new Ford GT. They did a really great job of keeping it secret, and it stole the NSX thunder. Now, here comes Type S, the swan song for the second generation. We're going to debut it at Monterey. We know it's coming. What kind of surprise is this out of nowhere? A freaking Lamborghini Countach. A brand new Countach. The first time that Lamborghini has ever brought that name. Brought back a nameplate. And poor Acura, they got overshadowed again. And now I'm sitting here talking about, well, if I've got that money to spend, I'm probably going for Porsche. I feel terrible because the NSX is a fantastic car. I think it looks great. I think it has outstanding performance. But it can't get a break. You know, It can't get a break. Well, I mean, what do you listeners think? Can Acura get a break? Are there cars that you would choose over an NSX? I mean, let us know. You know the email by now. If you don't, it's podcast@motor1.com. What else we got to talk about here, Bruce?
Well, as you talk about that, I'm thinking, should we call the NSX the Rodney Dangerfield of sports cars? No. It just can't get no respect.
Oh, don't get me started on Rodney. I'm such a huge Rodney fan. You're hitting me in my heart right now.
It's just it's a sad, weird story, and there's a really good book in there somewhere that parallels NSX development with everything else that's going on in the auto world at that time. And it just, every time it has that brief like pinnacle during that Super Bowl commercial with Seinfeld and Jay Leno. And I want to say I was at the Monterey Auto Show or the Monterey Car Week after that. And I was talking to some Acura people, and they were like, yeah, Seinfeld and Leno are both really fighting to have the very first car. Like, they thought it was going to be a huge thing. And then, like you said, the GT hits and all these other supercars hit, and it just gets buried.
It kind of does. And now
and it's not a bad car. It's just
it doesn't get any respect, you know?
Yeah.
It just doesn't get any respect. I mean, the car was fine, you know, it's fine now, but last week it was in rough shape, you know?
Yeah.
So the car went to a psychiatrist and said, Doc, I'm going crazy. The world hates me. Doc says, don't be insane. The world hasn't met you yet. Come on. Sorry, I had to bust into a little bit of Rodney there.
No. If I could do a good Rodney, I would have. And if anyone hasn't
I don't do a good Rodney. Trust me.
Rodney Dangerfield on the Carson show is fantastic. There's some really good like compilations of him appearing on that online, and it's just one-liner after one-liner, and it's so self-deprecating and it's so good.
Well, I mean, that was way back in the day. I mean, it was basically his whole stand-up routine, and he'd come out on stage, do a little bit of his routine, and then he'd go sit down with Carson. Thinking, okay, we're going to do the interview. No, it's just more of his routine. And Carson's just sitting there, just lining him up. Yep.
That's good.
So how's your heart? How's your heart, Rodney? Hey, we're not ready to talk about my doctor yet, Dr. Vinny Bubachi. We're not ready to talk about him yet.
Anyway, let's talk about cars because that's what we're here for. Although
we're rambling.
Damn it, YouTube! If copyright weren't an issue, we would be playing so many just YouTube videos of just random stuff that come to our mind, like the Rodney Dangerfield clip we're just talking about, but other stuff too.
We need an op-ed now asking people, is the Acura NSX the Rodney Dangerfield of supercars? I've never seen that. And it totally is. It totally is.
It just came at the wrong time, and so it never got respect, and sales have been horrible. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
And it's owed so much more.
Yes. So I'm going to put this one on you because you wrote up the story. The refreshed Lincoln Navigator. We have a refreshed Lincoln Navigator.
It's worth talking about because SUVs, I mean, obviously everybody's buying SUVs.
Right.
And the Navigator, is the Navigator the Rodney Dangerfield of large luxury SUVs? No.
Kind of is. No. The Escalade's the one that everyone talks about.
I mean, Escalade gets all the attention.
Yeah.
And now we have the Jeep Grand Wagoneer that is stepping up and getting attention.
You've got Lincoln's
over here saying,
yeah,
hey, I have like 30-way front seats with upgraded massagers, and the second row passengers have massagers now. What about me? So yeah, we have brand new Lincoln Navigator. That, well, not a brand new. It's just it's a refresh. The bones underneath are still the same.
Yeah.
It has a massive nose. Bruce, do you have some photos handy, or I can pull these up really quick?
I got it.
You got it. You got it right there. Okay.
Yep.
We'll let our YouTube fan base here see what we're talking about. You're not gonna miss the new nose. As with everything, it's grown. The grill is a fair amount larger than it was, but Lincoln was kind of
though.
No, it's not bad. Lincoln was kind of crafty because the grill itself is larger, but they put it in basically a housing that mimics almost like a BMW sized grill that dips all the way down into the fascia. But within that framework, you have the grill, and then you have the bumper that kind of separates the upper and the lower portion of the front. So it has a very large nose, but I think it's more proportional, and I think it looks pretty good. They gave it that facelift up front. They gave it new headlights. The headlights, I made a note here because I couldn't remember exactly. Pixel projector LED headlights, so you can see in the dark. Big surprise there. Around back, they just gave it just a minor update around the back side. Actually, when you look at the back versus the previous generation, you had the taillights that were bisected in the middle by chrome strip. They basically flipped that around. That chrome strip is now down on the bottom side. The taillights, the red lens runs all the way across the back. So, I mean, that's how you're going to differentiate it on the outside. The inside, you're really not going to differentiate anything at all because it's the same, except like the grill, you have to always update your touch screen. It has a slightly larger touch screen now. What is that? 13.2 inches. Just a little bit larger. The big thing here, though, that I think is worth talking about is the tech updates. You now have Lincoln's version of Blue Cruise that's available. That Bruce,
can we just play with this name a second, because it's a terrible name. It sounds like a Gillette razor.
You can't call it Blue Cruise because that's what Ford uses. So Lincoln has to call it Active Glide.
Active Glide.
It
gives you such a smooth shave.
It's like they were thinking about the 2008, 2009 Ford Fusion. When they were thinking
just
about
call
this,
it Blue Cruise. So we know Lincoln and Ford are related. You're not fooling anybody.
Just Blue Cruise. Well, I mean, blue. You have your blue oval for Ford. I agree. I
get it. It's just
I think this individual branding of all of these various systems,
because it's what we should say is it's the exact same system. It's the exact same technology. It's just
the same tech
because this is a Lincoln,
right? And I think we passed the realm of sanity long ago when it comes to automakers trying to brand all of these same systems with their own individual names. This is Lincoln's hands-free driving system. It's exactly the same as Blue Cruise. You can use it on 130,000 miles of approved highways. And we have a photo of a lady driving her Lincoln hands-free on presumably an approved highway. Yep. And I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for a luxury SUV.
A big deal. It's a useful feature. I just hate the name. I'm just being a branding snob.
The name is kind of ridiculous. The individual branding is kind of ridiculous, but it does move the Navigator really a big step forward, and it needed to have that step forward. You can also get over-the-air updates now in the new Navigator, updates for system modem upgrades. Lincoln says it can handle some preventative maintenance. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. I mean, it's not going to automatically change your oil for you, but that's part of the new system. There are more standard safety assists that you can get on here on the new Navigator now. I mentioned earlier the upgraded massaging front seats. The second row passengers now have massagers. There's a new digital control for a second row where they can manage everything from their climate control to their audio choices to their massaging, heating, cooling in the seats. It's got upgraded active suspension that can actually, it has cameras looking forward that monitors the road. And then based on what it sees on the road versus based on the movements that the SUV is making in real time, it can adjust the suspension up to 100 times a second to give you, in theory, a much smoother ride. So there's a predictive aspect in the Navigator's new suspension. And I mean, the starting price, I don't think we have an official figure yet. I think the current Navigator starts, I think, around 78, 79 grand. You option it up, and of course you can get over 100,000. There are a couple new black label editions too. Manhattan, and gosh, I didn't write these down, but I mean,
I just wanted to
simple
is from the photo that we're looking at now. If you're watching on YouTube, we are looking at one with lots of wood trim, lots of, I don't know if that's chrome, if it's polished aluminum, what it is. It looks fantastic. Like
I think the interior is gorgeous.
American automakers in the past 7 years or so, you look at the Escalade, you look at this, you look at some other vehicles, especially the Grand Wagoneer that's coming, that American automakers have just stepped up their game with interiors, and they look fantastic. You've got these great wood veneers, you've got polished metal, you've got shiny metal. Like back in the day, even in if you look at the mid to late 90s, an Escalade or a Navigator, they look bad basically on the inside. Like,
I mean, they were basic badge engineered,
exactly,
Chevrolets and Fords with like leather seats, but the same plastics. Lincoln, to their credit, I mean, and Cadillac too.
Jeep. The Grand Wagoneer looks good.
All of these vehicles have very pedestrian bones, but great lengths are being taken to really differentiate themselves from those pedestrian bones. Just to clarify, the picture that you have up there right now, Bruce, that is the Lincoln, the Navigator Black Label series. They call that Central Park.
Oh, of course, that's like the best one you can get.
It's like an urban-y park theme that uses darker woods for trim. The other new Black Label series is called Invitation. It has dual laser etching, open pore Kaya wood trim. So I mean, it's a lot of marketing speak for very, very upscale trim levels. But I agree. I mean, I like the Navigator interior much better than the Escalade.
I think they both look great, if I'm honest. Like I would have to drive them both to decide whether or not I wanted one of the two, because honestly, they both look fantastic. I can't, vouch for their infotainment tech or, driving, engine, stuff like that. But if you just look at the insides of the latest generations of American big SUVs, they look good, and kind of across the board, they look good. And I'm happy about that. I'm happy that we finally have a real competitor against your Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Lexus, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of finally stepped up their game, at least in terms of material quality stuff.
Right. And, I mean, I was thinking about this before we started the podcast. If I was looking at a large 3-row luxury SUV, I mean, I still might go German for some of those. But honestly, the Navigator, the Escalade, you're still going to get more space in the back. Mm-hmm. And I think I would choose Navigator. I really do. I think I would take Navigator over. I know I would take Navigator over Escalade. I don't know how I feel yet about the Grand Wagoneer, but I think Lincoln.
Well, that's the one we know the least about because it's not technically available yet, but we've seen kind of images and stuff of. But yeah.
And I mean, Lincoln Navigator, the Rodney Dangerfield of luxury SUVs, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Could be. Maybe this is the Rodney episode that we're talking about here. Okay. Let us know what you think, folks. Podcast@motor1.com. That's our email address. You can also follow me on Twitter at CHWriting. You can follow Bruce on Twitter, Chris Bruce 1985.
That's the one.
We are being a little more active on Twitter. I'm not the kind of person that's like, hey, I'm sitting down for dinner and I just saw a Volkswagen Beetle drive by. I'm not posting stuff like that all the time, but
I'm not that way either. But
you know what? I mean, this past week I posted up a couple observations that I had. I shared my third car. That's actually, I didn't realize this, but I have an electric car. It sits in my living room.
Oh,
and it's connected to my Xbox, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Little sim driving, but come on. I mean, I spent a lot of wasted time sitting in that damn cockpit. So yeah, we're posting stuff like that on Twitter. Hit us up with tweets on some things that you want to know. Hit us up with emails, comments. Whoa, what a segue. Speaking of comments, I think it's comments time.
Exactly. So our buddy Elric, who has commented before, he had a pretty interesting question that goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. So
very timely as well. Yeah.
Very timely. Yes. I wanted to answer that for him. So he said, great episode. I have a forward-looking, and he had that in quotes, I didn't add that, question for you for next week. Nissan is set to formally unveil the production version of the 400Z on August 18th. It's August 18th when we're recording this, so he's right.
Yeah.
So what is the one thing that you are most excited about the new production Z, and what are you least excited about the new production Z?
I think we kind of already answered that.
Yeah, I would say for me, I think the engine is fantastic. I love that it still exists. I wish it wasn't kind of a 370Z with a major makeover. I wish, in my heart of hearts, I wish that Nissan had the money to invest to build a whole new platform and everything, because I could be wrong about this, and I'm not looking it up as we talk about it, so I could very much be wrong about this. But I think the 370Z was the chassis on it was a kind of a 50% evolution from the 350Z. So that means that this platform has been around for forever, and I wish that they had the money to go in and do it properly.
Yeah, and I mean, I can wish that too, but it doesn't bother me that they didn't. I think the existing platform, as I already said, was good. They just needed to do some updates that they did. The least thing that I'm excited about is the squarish nose. I wish they deviated a little bit more on that from the concept. I wish they would have shrunk it down a little bit. I might change my mind on that when I finally see it in person. Most exciting, I mean, the twin turbo V6 with a 6-speed manual. In an application like this, I think it's the perfect combination. I think this is going to be an outstanding driver's car. I think it's going to be a refreshing experience for Nissan, and I'm looking forward to getting behind the wheel in a major way.
Yeah.
In a major way.
Do you have our questions pulled up, or do you want me to read another one?
No, I've got some questions here. Let me, because I know last week we talked all about Countach last week, and we asked
the entire episode,
and we asked people for their opinions. So let me read one of these here. This came in through an email here. I'm just going to say the first name, Rui, R-U-I.
Rui, R-U-I. Rui. We're not sure.
We apologize, but we want to read your comment here because I thought it was a really good one. Hi, it's great hearing you guys week in, week out. I still think you could do the podcast 2+ hours long. My stomach just totally won't do that because it's dinner time right now. But probably your wives would disagree with me. No, she would be happy if I was just locked in this room for much, much longer than 2 hours.
Yeah, and mine's in bed, so it's mostly we could do it 2+ hours, but Smith's stomach and my bladder probably couldn't take it.
You know, there are pills for that. There are pills for my stomach too. About the Countach, 2 things first. I always preferred Lambos over Ferraris, and being from 1986 and having played a lot of Need for Speed, Road and Track, I kind of vaulted over the Countach and loved the Diablo. Interesting.
And sadly, put it out there, Need for Speed, Road and Track, I think is the original.
That is the original
first one they put out.
I remember playing that.
Hilarious. Why can't Motor 1 have like a video game like that? Like, why can't we have Need for Speed Motor 1?
We did have a video game. Don't you remember, Bruce? It was like Escape from 2020, where you had to drive down a bridge.
Okay, that was a time. Okay, it was like a small browser game. You're right.
It was a small browser game, but it was a game.
Right. That happened.
Continuing on the comment here. Sadly, I think nowadays Ferrari is designing purposeful and contemporary cars, not just outdated and nostalgically curvy cars. And Lambo got obsessed with the hexagon thing. Not wrong there. Over designing the cars to put them everywhere. So, and again, sadly, because I'm not really into the whole bringing back the past thing, never liked the new Mini, the new Beetle, the new Thunderbird, etc. I think the new Countach is nearly perfect and the best looking Lambo since the Murcielago and the Gallardo. Thank you for the podcast and keep rambling.
Rui, you lost me, and I was with you until the very end.
Yeah, I got to disagree with you, Bruce. I think this hits right on the head. I think the new Countach looks fantastic because it's not over designed. Talking about the hexagon thing, that is so spot on. And I talked about it. I talked about it a little bit last week, where I think I was expecting pushback on the Countach because people were going to want something bonkers and crazy like the original Countach was. But we've become so used to bonkers, crazy supercars. If you try to compare a new Countach to modern cars instead of its context of the 70s and 80s, you're going to be disappointed. Yeah. So in that respect, when you look at the new Countach, its lines are clean. I mean, it has some large side vents, but it's not trying to overdo itself. And yeah, I dig that. And I do like it. I do like it better than the Murcielago. I do like it better. The Gallardo just never really did it for me.
No, my opinion is that the Murcielago, though, is better looking than the Aventador. And I think I'm in the minority of that. Maybe, possibly. But that's the only part I disagree with. I think the Murcielago was a better looking vehicle than the Aventador. Maybe I'm wrong. It's all, kind of a matter of taste, matter of personal style type of thing. But, assuming I could afford either, which I can't, I would take, a very nice Murcielago over an Aventador. But yeah,
I think I might as well. I think I might as well. But thank you for sending that in. That's a fantastic question.
Totally.
We need more like that. And we do have some more. Do you want to read some more, Bruce, here on Countach?
I can read. Yeah. Hold on. Let me scroll up here.
Or here, or if you want, I can read another one here.
I got one here.
You got it? You got it? All right.
Yeah. So this is from Ted. And he said, another fun week last week. You talked about Conquest, and my best friend and carpool partner in college had a brand new red wide body Conquest.
Yes.
And even as a die-hard Mustang guy, I totally loved it. It was a hot rod spaceship, which that's a good way to describe a Conquest.
Yeah.
And this week, the Countach is great news. I've only seen two in person. Ted, I'm not sure where you live, but you need to go some more car shows because they're not that. I've seen more than 2 Countaches in my life. Like, I wouldn't say. Anyway,
I think I might have only seen 2 on the road, but I mean, I've been to so many shows where, I mean, I've seen them at shows.
I've never seen one on the road. I've seen several at car shows, but anyway, but it was always the most impressive car, and even amongst the crowd of exotics, new and old. And someone will make a new one with a wide body and with a wing, and it will be glorious. Keep on podcasting. Thanks, guys. And I agree. I think we were talking about this in our chat at work, that like a company like Mansory or some other tuner is going to come up with fender flares and a huge wing and all sorts of parts for the new Countach. And if you want it to look like that, there's going to be someone out there that'll let you make it look like that. I
can fill that. I can fill that need right now here.
You have a 3D printer. You can make it happen.
Well, no, but a few days ago, we occasionally will do renderings.
Oh, we did see that rendering. Yes.
And the Sketch Monkey, who's a really talented rendering artist, did up a video giving us the new Countach, not with the wide body flares, but with the wing. I have that to share for you right now. And honestly, I think this is what Lamborghini should have done from the get-go. Look at that. And it has the retro style deep dish wheels, larger size, but they look identical to those 80s wheels. I like those better than the modern interpretation that they put on there.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I really like the big wing on the back. I mean, the clean lines of the new Countach are nice. I know they were going for the earlier LP400 model, but let's be honest, it became an icon after it got the wing, after it got the wide body, the fender flares, after it got the wide tires. That's really when it became an icon, and that's how most people are going to remember it. This rendering also took the headlights and just lowered them down the nose a little bit further, and it added some little 25th anniversary just kind of side strakes there on the ground effects underneath those side vents. I think it's a fantastic rendering. I know somebody's going to get a new Countach and put a V-wing on it.
Totally.
Somebody's going to have to do it. And after seeing a rendering like this, that's maybe that should have been the Countach.
Yeah, I think those phone dial wheels, I think they should have been true circles rather than the hexagons that they are in the production design. It just fits the car better. And I think the wing looks good too, honestly. Like, I think Sketch Monkey did a very, very good job with that rendering. He didn't change that much. He just kind of added the things that should have been added, and he did a very good job.
Let me read one more comment here, then we've got to move on. We've got to talk a little bit about some Z history.
Sure.
But we got this from Vampire Bear, who's commented before.
Yep.
And this is in direct response to our question about choosing 80s supercars. And the comment goes, my first choice of 80s supercars would be a 1989 Porsche 911 930S Cabrio.
I like his style.
That's a good choice. Good choice. I drove a triple black one back in 89, but mine would be Grand Prix white with blue interior and top and white Fuchs wheels. That's very Fuchs. Sorry, Fuchs. Everybody knows by now I can't pronounce anything. I'm such a I write, I don't speak, right? And I love the overabundance of white with the blue. That is, I mean, I can see that in my mind, and that is such an 80s look, right? I mean, I don't know if it can get much more 80s than that.
It can.
Second choice would be a white 88 Testarossa. I think it just got a little bit more 80s, Bruce.
Yeah.
I drove both the white Testarossa and white Countach from Miami Vice while in Fort Lauderdale in June 89. That Countach is what made me hate Borgs.
I'm very jealous that he got to drive both of those. I have not been able to drive either of those, and I want to. So if you can like hook me up, if you are in the Northwestern Ohio area, you email us and I'll be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, I haven't driven either one of those. Everybody says the Countach is a terrible vehicle to drive, and that honestly,
but I wonder what that really means.
That makes me want to drive it more because because now we're not just talking about the act of driving. We're talking about having a very specific driving experience that's unique to a car. And I love that sort of thing. I love driving the 3-cylinder Metro, the 3-cylinder Chevy Metro that I had for a few months, not because it was comfortable or fast, but because it just had its own character, and I found that endearing. And I am almost positive I would have that attraction to Countach. The comment wraps up here. After getting out, it feels like you've been in a rock tumbler. Yeah, I can imagine. After being beaten by a biker gang. Keep up the great work, guys. Well, thanks very much for the comment and for sharing that experience. Yeah, I mean, we were asking people, what would you choose for 80 supercars? Mine were the 288 GTO Ferrari and the Countach. Bruce, you had the F40, and
959,
and the 959. So between the two of us, man, we got it covered.
Yeah, totally.
We got it covered.
I wouldn't change either yours or mine. They're all fantastic cars.
And of course, for next week's show, podcast at motor1.com. I'll keep repeating that email because we love the emails. Comment on the articles that we put up every Friday at motor1.com. You can comment on our YouTube videos as they go up. And also, Motor One Podcast is our YouTube channel. Get over there and like and follow us as we build up. We're building up followers slowly but surely. The more we get, the more we can do for you. So let's talk a little bit more about Z, because we're both kind of fascinated with the history of the Nissan Z back.
We are, yeah.
Course,
so
when it was Datsun and then moving forward.
So it's funny. So this is a personal thing, but this week, I gotta stretch. Sorry.
Go ahead and stretch, man. I can vamp here for you.
I bought I received this from eBay. This is a 300ZX Fairlady twin turbo Tamiya model. I will be building it probably in the next couple months or so. I've got kind of a stash of models I need to build. But yeah, I've been weirdly in a late 80s, early 90s Japanese car kind of thing recently. Just that era really has been fascinating me.
Me as well. Yeah, it's not just you. I don't know. I mean, is it because we've been building up for Z and we have Supra? I mean, has that rekindled something maybe?
I think honestly, maybe. I think that you and I at work, we were writing about these cars a lot. That it kind of gets it in your head, and you and I both enjoy building models. We enjoy the intricacy of it, the fact that you have all of these tiny parts that you have to detail and then put together. That there's something really fun about that. And it's not fun to everybody, obviously, but it's fun at least to me, and I think it's fun to you. So it's been good times recently.
It's kind of become a lost art. There's so many distractions with video games and phones and such. I mean, you really have to sit down and take your time. Totally. And that's a lesson that I didn't learn until very, very late in life, because I remember as a kid, I'd sit down and build a car model in like a day.
Oh, Jesus, really?
Like painting and everything. And of course, I mean, there would be fingerprints on the seats because the seats weren't dry when I'm trying to glue them into the interior. And then I'm spray bombing the outside. I mean, I didn't say I built them good, but it was just like, I want it built. I want it done as quick as possible. It took me a long time to realize you have to enjoy the process.
Yeah. The detailing is what I love. Screw it here. Hold on one second. Vamp for me 1 second. And I'll show you what I'm working on right now. And if our viewers don't like it, screw them.
Of course our viewers are going to like it, because this is the essence of rambling about cars. No, I was actually going to I was trying really hard to buy a 300 ZX, a Z31 model when I did my 80s car event a few weeks back, because I've got my 125th scale loaded semi truck behind me loaded with 80s and 90s cars. I ended up getting an A80 Supra because I couldn't get a Z31 300 in time. But yeah, man, I mean, models, it's definitely shifted over the years to become something, instead of just getting it done because I want to look at the car, to I want to enjoy the process of building. You know what I'm saying?
To me, it's a weird type of Zen thing at night that I kind of turn on a movie, maybe I pour myself a drink and, you very slowly kind of detail various pieces. So the one I'm working on right now, I've got a Subaru XT.
Oh, look at that.
From the late 80s. And
the box art too. The box art looks fantastic.
Yeah. And I custom mixed a color to try to match the interior as closely as I could. But I've got a bunch of paint and I've just been, trying to make it look as realistic as possible. And that's the fun in it, that you just kind of sit there and you end up watching a 90-minute movie and maybe you've detailed one large part, but that's the fun. Like, it's just a slow, contemplative process.
There are quite a few people that I follow, both in Facebook groups and on YouTube, that build models that I'll have to try to recommend to you here after the podcast. And hey, maybe we can even try to get them on the podcast at one point. I know one of the guys, what's his, I think it's Onyx Models on Facebook. He did a Pontiac Fiero that looks, I mean, if you could shrink down to 1/25 your size, you could get in it and drive it away. The detail work on that thing was just phenomenal. I mean, we're kind of getting off of the Z subject here.
We totally are. And I apologize for anyone who is skipping around this episode. We are now getting back to Z.
We are getting back to Z, but I'll wrap it up by saying I'm going to build a model of a Z31 300ZX just because I want to detail every single little button in that interior.
But so what we're in researching this episode for today, I found this website. It's called zhome.com, and they have kind of very granular information about production of the Nissan Z cars. And I was fascinated to find this because I didn't realize how low, relatively speaking, the sales for these cars were. So first year of the Z, 1970, this is a 240Z, 16,000 units. Okay. I can understand a first year. What is that? Nearly doubles what 1630? Yeah. Damn near nearly doubles to 33,000 units in 71. And then jumps to 52,000, almost 54 or almost 53,000 units in 72. Like, it was a success. But I want to show you something else so we're talking about 72.
I mean, I don't think that's bad at all. For the context of the time in the United States, I mean, you still had Ford, General Motors, Chrysler. Those were the cars you bought. The imports from Japan, from Europe, they weren't really hitting much. Right. Americans still bought predominantly American. So when you say 54,000 in 72, I don't think that's bad at all. But
until you look at 1972, so this is courtesy of Car and Driver. They put together. I'll link to this in our post. But 125,000 Mustangs were sold, 68,000 Camaros. So, okay, you could say 52,000 to 68,000. That's not that bad.
That's not too far off. But I mean,
125,000 Mustangs in 1972.
And that was at a point where Mustang sales were starting to drop a little bit because the car was big and the fuel crisis, the emissions were starting to become a factor. So, I mean, yeah, that's a low number for Mustang, actually.
And so another thing that I thought was interesting here, so I'm going to switch back. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. So this is 1978, 1979. Or I'm sorry, 1977, 1978. Production grows to 54,594 Z cars in the US for 1977. You look at that and you compare it to Mustang and Camaro sales, which we will get to right now.
I mean, I know where you're going with this because
79, that's a strong year for Z car sales. 370,000 Mustangs, 383,000 Camaros.
Yeah.
The same year.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. We're talking about fairly niche vehicles. The Z is going to be more niche than Mustang or Camaro because, I mean, those cars at least had back seats.
Sure.
But I mean, their primary purpose was fun. I mean, I'm just not sure. It's an interesting comparison, but I'm not sure it's really valid in context.
But you don't think the same person shopping for a Mustang or Camaro at the time, that kind of pony car type thing, I feel as though 240, 260, 280Z, those feel to me, maybe I'm wrong. Hey, commenters, if you think I'm wrong, tell me. I feel as though those fill the same niche. Am I?
Yeah, I don't think they do really.
Okay.
I mean, I think you had more of a sports car minded person going for 240, 260, 280. I'm not sure. I mean, we're talking sports car versus pony car, which I know for some people that's splitting hairs, but yeah. I see those as two very, very different genres. Where you're going to buy a Mustang, you're not really thinking about something with handling and a certain balance. You're thinking about more maybe of a lifestyle. And of course, you're also thinking about power, which Mustang didn't have through that era. Camaro,
yeah, we're well into Mustang 2 era at that point.
Didn't really have it either. I mean, Ford reinvented the Mustang 2 for the time, and I mean, I'll argue that point with anybody to the end of time that Ford made the right decision. The fact that they sold so many of them,
yeah. Here, let me pull that up. If you look at sales,
79 is the first year for the Fox. That's not Mustang 2. That's the first year for the Fox body. 78 was the last year for the Mustang 2. But the Mustang 2 sales were still really strong up there. But to kind of go along with what you're saying there, wonder
what you're saying. Like, look, so sure, Mustang sales are insane starting out. We're looking at all the way 65, over 500,000 a year. But then 74, you get to 386,000 a year.
Yep.
79, you're at 370,000. Like, the Mustang was just an insane seller, especially if you look at it by modern times.
Now,
for that period,
let me piggyback off of that.
Okay.
Let me piggyback off that by sharing a photo of a car that you are not going to want to see. Even though I don't think it's so bad. But I have to wonder, since you're talking about Mustang and Camaro, was Datsun at the time really trying to break into that market with their 280 ZX 2x2?
God, that's a bad car.
The Z car with the back seat, because I would consider this more of a competitor with Mustang and Camaro of the time.
It was,
and I have to wonder if Nissan was thinking that too. Hey, maybe we can get more buyers for our sports car if there's room for a couple small kids in the back. Now, this is I know a lot of people just don't like the 280 2x2.
It's the worst the Z car ever was.
No, I don't think it's the worst.
I can't think of anything worse. Like,
if you gave me a 350, a choice of a 350Z or this, honestly, I would take this. No. If you gave me a choice between this or a 260, I would take this.
You're crazy at that point.
Every other Z car I would take. I'm not saying this is the best.
No.
But I mean, I still think it has handsome lines. I think it has a little more functionality. It's still going to be a fun car to drive.
That back end is bad.
It's just got a little more space. It's not that bad. Come on.
She's got a little more junk in the trunk.
But more to your points. I mean, we saw the 2x2s come out in this time period, and you pointing out the sale. I think that's a very astute point. If you're Datsun at the time trying to look at the American market with your sports car, how are you going to break into that? Looking at this just insane wall of hundreds of thousands of Mustangs and Camaros being sold each year. How are we going to break into that? And I mean, of course, they started with the 240 sales. I mean, as we just saw, I don't think they were bad at all in context of the time, But I'm sure executives in Japan were thinking, oh, well, how can we make this better? So, you know what? They tried. It didn't work. I mean, in hindsight, we know it didn't work. We know
we're looking here.
We know they didn't sell that many of the of the 282 by 2s. And I will concede that the regular 2-seater, the 280, that definitely looks better. Absolutely. But I have a thing for loving cars that most people don't, and maybe that makes me a charity case. But I don't see that 282 plus 2 as being that bad.
Let me put it this way. It's the worst of the bunch, but if someone's rolled it up to me and said, hey, do you want this? I also wouldn't say no, because I would appreciate its weirdness and its quirkiness. But if I had to buy one, it would have to be at a distinct discount from the 2-seater.
I don't know. After what I just said, I might have to eat a little crow, because we're looking at a picture of a 260 right now.
The 260 is fine. The 260 is just a 240 with kind of a bad bumper.
Yeah, but I will concede. Okay, it looks better than the 280.
Of course it does.
I'd still rather have the 280 2 plus 2 over a 350. The 350 just never really excited me that much.
Sure.
It just never really got me that excited. But yeah, the 260 looks good. The 260 looks good.
Let me find a good photo here. I've got a controversial statement.
Uh-oh.
I think the 300 Turbo is fantastic looking. And I know a lot of people disagree with me with that weird inlet. Oh, damn it.
That's a little tiny photo. Hold on, Bruce. I can save the day here, because I have that same photo queued up here, ready to go. That's the anniversary model, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that car. You won't hear me disagree at all. Given
that's the same one. But you can see that first little choice inlet on the driver's side corner for the turbo. I think that's fantastic.
Oh, I love everything about this car. Any Z car, from the brand new Z to the 240, I would take the Z31 300. That's at the very top of my list. The very top of my list.
I would put 240. I would put the original first and that second.
And I mean, in the 80s, in the United States, turbocharged, I think these were like 205 horse. I mean, not stellar by
modern
any means
standards, but yeah.
But at the time, in the mid 80s, I mean, that was what the Mustangs, the Camaros, it was competitive right there with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love the wedge shape of that car.
That's what I love.
The 50th anniversary. Yeah. I love just the real narrow front clip. Yeah, the turbo intake over here that you're talking about. I love everything about that. Now, that's the outside, Bruce. What about the inside of these cars? I don't think there's a better 80s interior than the Z31 300 ZX. Oh, with the digital dash and the cassette player with a separate equalizer. I just think that is, I mean, in the 1980s, that was the future. That you got in that thing, it looked like the future. It had the digital readouts on the dash. I mean, it's not like a digital screen like you're thinking of today.
No. It's this
when you shut the car off,
computer game thing.
Yeah, when you shut the car off, you still saw a bunch of this stuff. But yeah, when the car was running, I mean, it would have lights in motion, and it felt like you were in the space shuttle, right?
Yeah.
It felt like you were in the space shuttle. And you know what? It still has the two gauges there, the middle angle towards the driver, which in this, actually, one of them looks like a compass. I hadn't noticed that before. They put a compass there in the middle of the dash. But yeah, I mean, with that classic shift boot, just kind of the rubber looking shift boot, I think this is right up there with one of the coolest interiors of the 1980s. Prove me wrong. Anybody prove me wrong.
I can't.
Anybody prove me wrong. Send me photos. Prove me wrong.
All right, man. I think this is the show for tonight. I think it's just you and I geeking over the late 1980s. Like, I think that's just what the show tonight is. Like, people are going to tell us we're wrong. Like, people are going to tell us that modern technology is better. But I love this aesthetic. I love the way these cars look. I love that super sharp wedge shape on the outside, and that it's not even, it's digital, but it's like dumb digital. It's you know what I mean? Like, we have digital
best description.
We have digital cabins today. Like, you look at a lot of high and even mid-end cars, and they have digital instrument clusters. But this is just like lights that flash and get brighter and things like that.
It's the It's the anti-minimalist cockpit in the biggest way. The same way that the Vector was trying to be basically a fighter jet. It was trying to mimic a fighter jet for the road. At this time, the future was we'll have switches for everything. You'll get in there. You'll have just this insane control. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to love about it. But I don't know. I keep going back to this anniversary photo, this 50th anniversary 300 Z31. Now, to be fair, I mean, the Z32 300ZX, that was a nice car as well.
Let's look at the Vector. Like, it's just such a stupid. It's useless, but it's beautiful.
I don't know that it's beautiful. It's functional.
Okay. Yeah, right.
It's functional. It's functional, and it's not beautiful. It's functional and official, maybe is a good way to describe it.
No, it's not
it's official. Every button is clearly labeled. Every switch is clearly labeled.
But there's so many of them, and so many of them seem pointless.
It's not integrated into one control. Each function has its own control. Yeah. With a little digital screen in the middle telling you when a door was up or the engine hatch was up. I know we're supposed to be talking about Z, but
this is Vector, what rambling about cars is. Where you're rambling, and it's fun.
the Vector was definitely cool.
Yeah.
But you know what? At the same token, before we go,
okay,
I do need to let me share this. Let me give this quick shout out to the Z32. Especially because there are a couple out here in my town of Rapid City that just look fantastic. Being next to an Air Force base, you tend to see some of the more rare cars. There are a couple JDM right-hand drive 300ZXs. This isn't one of them. This is just a generic picture online.
Okay,
but I mean, that's a good-looking car too, man. With the T-tops,
totally. Yeah,
that's a great-looking car, and with the twin turbo V6 in America, that was 300 horsepower. And I think these Z32s are like maybe one of the best unknown buys right now.
We were talking about this in chat recently, that like the Supra and the RX-7 have gone into the stratosphere.
Yeah,
the 300ZX, like,
it's kind of slipping under the radar. And these things weren't bad. They weren't slow. They looked fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think maybe the moral of the story here is the new Z has a lot to live up to. And I don't think it has to worry about the 350 or the 370Z. I think it has to live up to the Z32 and the Z31 and the 282 by 2.
That's the one it doesn't. No, but sure, fine. If you want to say that, fine.
Just give it to me.
I'll give it to you. Deal.
What do you think, folks? What does the new Z have to live up to?
Well, here, real quick, 1 second. While
okay, one second.
I do want to say that the 300ZX is an affordable car. And so we are looking at one. It's not nearby me. This is in Akron, Ohio. So it's like,
is this the one that you sent me earlier today that I should buy? Yeah. It is, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like 2.5 hours from me, but $7,500. Sadly, the guy doesn't provide an underhood picture, but like you can for whatever reason, you can still get these for a reasonable amount of money.
And like, it looks good.
$7,500 is a normal guy amount of money. You're not a millionaire. You're not, you know.
Yeah,
that's affordable.
It's affordable. That would be a fun, good-looking car that you could take to car shows and get attention. And I mean, if it's looking good, maybe trophies. It would be fun to be fun to drive.
Wax it up, yeah.
Hey, I got a car show trophy with my '87 Mercury Sable's freaking station wagon. You spend some time, you make your car look good, you do a presentation, people like it. Okay. And it's super easy to do with a 300ZX with a Z31.
Yeah.
Do we want to wrap it up? We're like an hour 15. We should probably,
I think that's the show.
We should probably do our thing. You know, email us at podcast@motor1.com.
That's the email.
Your thoughts on the Z, your thoughts on Z history, your thoughts on me liking the 282 plus 2. I know I'm in the minority. I know I'm in the minority, but it's not the worst one. The 350 is the worst one. But we can probably hash that out later on. Podcast@motor1.com. Chris Bruce 1985 on Twitter, at CH Writing on Twitter.
Yep.
Thank you for listening, Bruce. You know what to do.
Of course. So a couple things. As always, Smith and I try to respond to every comment that you leave us, whether it's email, whether it's on the post that we put up every Friday on the site, or whether it's on the YouTube video. So if you comment, at minimum, you're going to get a thanks for listening, and you're probably going to get a little bit more than that. So if you like the show, you have a criticism about the show, you have something you want to say, let us know, because we are watching those things. And I can promise you that, because we do. And then, as always, good afternoon or good evening or good night. Whenever you happen to be listening to this show, we appreciate every listen that you do. You know, our Slack chat at work is a lot of rambling about cars. It's posting stuff. It's talking about nerdy stuff. It's sending your coworkers ads for cars when
there's a lot of that. When you know he has to sell one car before he can buy another one.
There's a lot of that. So we're going to be doing this anyway, but we love your participation in it. Yeah. So comment, like, subscribe, whatever it is, we appreciate it, and we appreciate you listening. So that's it. But
that's it.
Yeah.
We'll see you later, everybody.
Yep. All right. Bye-bye.